Fantasy people, welcome to my top 6 defender video. This one's been an absolute pleasure to make. I really like that picking the defenders, you get a lot more variation in the position, so that's been really fun. I put this one together basically just to help people who are targeting a premium defender. They want to get that guy who's going to score the absolute maximum possible for the rest of the season, so I've done it based on that. It's not really what they've done, it's what I think they're going to do for the rest of the season. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you who is in the current top 6 defenders. So if we take a look at the current top 6, we've got coming in at number 1, it's Sam Docherty. He's well above the rest with 110. Number 2, it's Jayden Short with a 102. Jordan Dawson, 103. Jack Crisp in at 4 at 101. Jack Sinclair, number 5 with 100. And Tom Stewart rounding that out with a 99. Now, Tom Stewart's not going to feature in this video because of his 4-match suspension, so I do think he would have been one of the top 6 defenders, but with that suspension, it kind of rules him out for the coming week, so I'm not going to include him. What I do want to do is before I start or reveal my top 6 defenders, I just want to show you a couple of guys that I think most people had pinned as a top 6 that I don't think are going to make it because of maybe like a role change, or I just don't think they can do it. So the first one I want to highlight is Jayden Short, who I have projected to come in for 98 average coming home. Now, the reason, even though Jayden Short, he's had a fantastic season, he's averaging 27 disposals, 7 marks, 2 tackles for his 102 fantasy points. He's currently second on the overall defender list. The reason I don't think he's going to do it is he's had a position shift. So when they played the West Coast Eagles in round 7, Damien Hardwick unleashed him into the midfield. I think it has been fantastic for Richmond. So Jayden Short getting the ball and kicking it inside 50 is a lot better than Jayden Short just racking up disposals down in the back line. The problem is it does hurt my fantasy team because I do have Jayden Short. So here's the first one. So the CBAs are the giveaway here. So from round 7 onwards, he's averaged 50% CBAs. Previous to that, he didn't have any. So he was taking kick-ins, he was just chipping the ball, he was like kicking it to the next guy and then going to receive the ball again. It was absolutely brilliant to watch. His time on ground's dropped 3%, which also shows you that he's playing a midfield role. He's having to run a lot more. And here's the biggest giveaway. So this average before and after the role change. Before he went into the midfield, he went at 107, and after he's gone at 98. And it's really hurt his ceiling. If we look at the graph here, his lowest score of the season is 68, which was also in that half-back role. So he's got a better floor. The floor's gone up slightly as well, playing in the midfield role because he's around the ball more. But the ceiling's gone, so he's scoring around the sort of 80, 90, 100 mark at the moment. Previously, he was getting 130s, 120s, and his season high there of 131 kind of illustrates that. He does have a good run coming home, but I don't think he's going to be one of the top 6 scorers. He's going to go around that 97, 98 average, which is going to leave him a missing. The next one that I want to highlight that people had in their top 6 was George Hewitt. In previous seasons, players that have played a genuine sort of inside midfield role have been in the top 6 defenders. I think the game's changed a little bit. I think if you're playing a genuine inside mid with no outside game at all, you're going to sit in the 90s somewhere. There's less basically ability for players to get cheap possessions. The guys that are getting those cheap possessions are in the back line. I think we've seen the gap between midfielders in general and defenders close. Forwards are really struggling this year because they have that really difficult position. The hardest place on the ground to get possessions is the forward line. The defenders, you can see, are really closing the gap to the midfielders. So George Hewitt's going to sit in that high 90s range. He's going to keep doing what he's been doing. There's not a lot of data to go through here. He's just currently averaging 98 for the season, and I don't see him bettering that. He's got 30 disposals, 3 marks, and 5 tackles, and he's just going to keep doing what he's been doing. He's got a really bad kick-to-handball ratio that hurts him a lot because 30 disposals is great on its own. You can see there that he does play that inside mid-roll because he has the low marks and high tackles, showing that he gets a lot of centre bounces. It is interesting to note that he is the number 2 centre bounce attendee for Carlton. going at 74% CBA, so he's only behind Patrick Cripps. He has that great role, but it's going to leave him somewhere in the high 90s, and it's not going to be enough to come home as a top 6 defender. So coming in at number 6, it's Lachie Whitfield. Now, you're probably thinking, Lachie Whitfield's been absolute crap this season, and he kind of has, but the most important thing about his stats here, if we have a look, he's averaging 23 disposals. He's not setting the world on fire, going at 91 fantasy points. But what I think he can improve a lot, in other seasons he's had a lot higher marks. Last year he was down as well, but I think he can improve his marks and his disposals. He's been thrown around a lot this year. He's played a lot in the forward pocket under Leon Cameron earlier in the year. And the biggest thing that you can see here in the data is his average before and after the new coach. So under Leon Cameron, averaging just the 86 points per game, well down on Lachie Whitfield's usual output. This year, not this year, under Mark McVeigh, he's going at 107, so a massive improvement. You can see here, he averages 84% time on ground. He was taking kick-ins earlier in the season, and they've dropped off, but I don't think that's a big deal. And the other thing to note with Lachie Whitfield is just those season lows. So under the old coach, he had a season low of 46. And his season high this year, which has been under the new coach, is 131. His lowest score under the new coach is 91. I just think he's going to keep going around that 90 to 110 mark. He's going to spit out a few big scores. He might have the odd 70, but it's going to leave him at an average of around 100. He is historically a fantasy gun, and we have to consider him. So he's my number 6 pick, Lachie Whitfield. Coming in at number 5, it's Jack Sinclair. Now, I did consider putting him a little bit higher up the list, but the reason that I'm not going to do it is I don't really see a lot of improvement in Sinclair. He's gone up 23 points on his last year average. He's had a huge sort of late career breakout here. He's averaging 28 disposals. He's superbly important to St Kilda's game plan. Averages the 6 marks and the 2 tackles for his 102 fantasy points. Now, he's not a huge kick-in taker for St Kilda. He is the number 1 guy that takes the kick-ins, but they share it around a lot. So he's pretty even with guys like Brad Hill. I think Webster back there takes a few. His time on ground of 83% is a little bit low for a guy that plays in that sort of halfback role. His run home is 3 easy and 5 hard, so he doesn't have a particularly favourable run home. And based on this is the first season that we have seen him do this, I just don't see him having like a huge run late in the season. I think he's going to do about what he's doing now. He also has been tagged a little bit in the recent weeks, so I think that's a slight concern as well, as I don't think he's the type of player that handles a tag very well. So coming in at number 5, he's going to keep doing what he's doing. It's Jack Sinclair. Coming in at number 4, it's Jack Crisp. So here we have our first in the top 6 that is a midfielder. So Jack Crisp, he's not a midfielder in the sense that he's going to pump out uber premium midfield numbers. He's not going to do like a Jack Steele or a Tuke Miller last year, but he's very, very solid, and he has had a role change this year. Previous seasons, he's been more of that sort of halfback guy that's pinch hit in the midfield a little bit. We can really see this year from the CBAs and the time on ground that he's playing a genuine midfield role. In 2021, he averaged 37% CBAs. That's shot up to 60% this year, so that's really high, and that's even been higher than that in recent weeks. It was a little bit lower at the beginning of the season. You see the time on ground. Last year, he averaged 88% time on ground. With the new midfield role, with more running, he's down to 83%, so he's taking more rests. And you look at those disposals, and it's kind of the perfect data example of what playing as like more of an inside midfielder and having more CBAs does. So you look at his 21 data there, he averaged 27 disposals, 7 marks, 3 tackles. So the marks are up, the tackles are down because he's not playing on the inside. In 2022, he goes at 26 disposals. The marks are down to 5. He is still an outside midfielder, so his marks are still relatively good, but the tackles have gone up to that 5 while he's playing on the inside. He's attending more centre bounces for his 103 points this year. So I do think that slight increase in the inside midfield role has helped his scoring a little bit. He's been really solid again this year, going at 103. I had him for the rest of the season based on his run home, where he has 5 easy matchups and 3 hard ones. I can't see him pumping out any of those kind of really low scores. He's put out 2 low scores this year of 51 and I think 69 at the weekend. I don't see that happening much on the run home. I've got him going at a 104 average. There's really no safer pick in the game than Jack Crisp. You're going to get a positive 100 average out of him. So he's really safe. You're not getting a bargain or anything, but you're getting a fantastic pick. And I have him ranked at number 4. One other thing to note though with Crisp that I just wanted to mention was his goals. So it's another thing that you can tell that he's playing more forward of centre rather than behind the ball this year. In 2021, he had 2 goals for the entire season. And you can see this year he's kicked 7 goals in just the 14 games that he's played. So the goals have massively increased as he's more forward of the ball. And he's a more damaging player in the role that he is at the moment. So I really like it. Coming in at number 3, it's Aaron Hall. Now, Aaron Hall, he is a very, very intimidating prospect to have in your team. I think if you do pick him up, you're going to be worried about injury every week, maybe every second of the weekend that you watch him. I have him going at 106 average for the rest of the season. You cannot ignore the scoring potential of Aaron Hall. Let's have a look at his raw stats. So he averages this year 23 disposals, 5 marks, and 2 tackles. In 2021, he averaged 28 disposals, 7 marks, and 2 tackles for 109 fantasy average. The thing is, and this is the most important stat of Aaron Hall's display, his average in 2021, if you take away the injured games that he had 2 injury-affected games in 2021, he would have averaged 119 points. He's had 1 injury-affected game this year. If you take that away, he's averaging 100 points. He is a fantasy machine. Looking at his kick-ins here, he's going at 40% for the season, but that's actually increased. So he's been given an even better role. Last year when he scored that 119 average in the back half, 117 average in the back half, Jack Zeeble was taking most of the kick-ins. So he actually had a worse role last year, which is even crazy. Like somehow he's even got more potential on what he was doing. His recent kick-ins at 50% have been immense. North Melbourne are absolute crap, so teams kick a lot of points and a lot of goals against them, so he will be taking those kick-ins. He's the number 1 kick-in taker for North. The 76% time on ground is a bit of an illusion because he had that game that he went off in the second quarter, so that would be more likely in the 80s when he's playing a normal game. We look at those season splits, which I mentioned. He went at 117 in the back half of last year. His potential is immense. It's just the injury risk. He's got 4 easy games and 4 hard ones. For Aaron Hall, I don't think it matters that much. I think he's just going to rack up if he's on the park. And if he's not on the park, bad luck. If you want to be risky, pick Aaron Hall. Full disclosure, I am picking him up this week. So, let's see. Coming in at number 2, this is one of my favorites. This is actually the only player in the whole list that I have in my team currently, in the whole top 6 projections that I've made. He's the only one that I started with and I actually have. It's Jordan Dawson. He's an absolute ripper. I've got him going for the rest of the season at a 108 average. He's had a fantastic season, 19 kicks, 7 handballs for his 26 disposals, averaging 8 marks, which is 3 up on last year, 2 tackles. Like I said, this type of role, this defender, they've almost become the most important player in their teams, really. This sort of Docherty, Dawson, Tom Stewart type role. They really dictate the entire team's game plan. They control the game for them, so they're so important now, and I think that's why they've closed the gap on the midfielders. His fantasy score this year of 102 is great already, and he seems to be just building into the season as he did only switch from Sydney at the end of last year. He's built into the season. He's getting better and better. He has a fantastic time on ground of 89. He's the number 1 kick-in taker. Earlier in the season when he was scoring worse, he was going at 27% of the kick-ins. Recently, he's been going 60% of kick-ins, so that's even better. Looking at his run home, he's got 4 easy matchups and 4 hard ones. He does get thrown around a little bit, Jordan Dawson, so I guess that can be a little bit intimidating when you're looking to pick him up. But basically, Matthew Nicks is just trying to get him around the ball. If he's having a slow game, if he's getting tagged, they're just going to try and get him closer to the ball. They'll push him onto a wing or even into the midfield. So No problems. He's got a good run home. There's not many better picks than Jordan Dawson, but there is one, and he is my number one on this list. It's Sam Docherty. What a revelation he has been this year. I have him projected to go at 114. He's another example of this reliance or importance of these kind of rebound defenders that teams have. They really control the game for the team. They're fantastic. I absolutely love Docherty, and he's also a great story. He's averaging 29 disposals, 7 marks, 3 tackles for his 110 fantasy points. That's an 11-point increase on last year. He did miss quite a few games last year also. One interesting thing about Docherty, and I think that's people had their reservations about him. Earlier in the season, he wasn't taking as many kick-ins. He was one of the secondary kick-in takers. Since round 9, he's really increased that. So he's gone up to a 50% ratio of the kick-ins. He's now the number 1 kick-in taker at Carlton. And that's just even improved his ceiling even more. Absolutely crazy stuff. So his average before and after the kick-in increase. Before, he was going at 105, which is still great. Since that, he's going at 117. So, you know, the world's his oyster, basically. I've got him going at 114 for the rest of the season. He's got a fantastic ceiling. His floor's pretty good too. And with those extra kick-ins, the floor's even better. So you can't really lose with Doc. He is my number 1 defender option. Now, if you can't get up to Doc, he's obviously very expensive now. So you take the next best option that you can on the list, basically. So there it is, guys. There's my top 6 defender projections. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like down below and subscribe to the channel, please. Remember, they are just my opinions. I've gathered the stats, had a look at it, and done the best that I can. If you agree, let me know down in the comments. If you disagree, also let me know. You can ask about players. I'm welcome to have a chat with you. So thanks again, guys. I'll see you next time.